bought a single-family home for me and my family, and it was one of those situations where the BAH covered it and everything was good to go. Fast forward, we wanted to move. We didn't so much like the school zone, and I mean that property cash flow is maybe $130 a month, and I'm self-managing, so as an asset, it's not really doing it for me. It's more of a loaded gun than anything, because when my tenants move out, if I can't sell it, that's a bill I have to foot.
In the master bedroom. Oh.
Down there, all right.
I told you, I can't touch these without breaking them. I didn't even do anything. I just turned the thing.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dan Wynn with the Financial Freedom Journal. I'm here with my brother Brandon Harris over here with Keller Williams Realty, and what we're doing today is we're doing a collaboration. We are both military, and we thought it would be a great idea to go walk a house. He's a realtor, I'm an investor, and we figured we can go walk this thing, and you can kind of get both perspectives to see how, if you are an active duty soldier and you want to PCS from location to location to location, and you want to make each of your homes rental properties, we want to show you how to do that and how you can be looking to do the same thing. Some things to look out for, and then again, you can get the realtor's perspective as well as the investor's perspectives.
So we've got a traditional Huber home. One cool thing about the Huber houses is they were all built in the same time frame with relatively the exact same materials and floor plans. So if you've seen one Huber home, there's very few variances between the two. This one is the one I'm most commonly used to seeing. It's a 3-bed, 2-bathroom variant, and let's check it out. Let me show you another staple of Huber homes.
Huber homes, man. So here we have the kitchen. Now, you know that one kitchen we have in Huber home is the washroom in the kitchen. Now, as here we have the first bedroom. Another staple of Huber home is the high windows. Each room in the house, you've seen one, you've seen all of them. Pretty standard works here. Some people use it in the bedroom, but that's ultimately for the person living here. Here we have the master bedroom. Can't remember the square feet off the top of my head, but again, the high windows, as you can see, a large closet in the other 2 bedrooms. And the master bedroom. Oh, down there, all right. I told you, I touched these without breaking them. I didn't even do anything. I just turned the thing. We're just going to keep Huber home that works. The feature of the 2-bath is that there's actually a master bath attached, so I'll let you peek in there. There are 3-bed, 1-bathroom Huber homes where the centralized bathrooms.
You got some excellent B-roll right there.
All right, so what we want to have now is we want to have a conversation between investor and realtor. Again, it's Brandon Harris here with Keller Williams Realty. So what we're going to talk about is the different mindset, the different mentality, and the different way that an investor would walk through a home versus a normal home buyer. And we like to spin this in a way to basically cater to any military service member that is walking a home and thinking of turning it into a rental after they actually live in it. So we'll first let Brandon talk, and he'll go over how the typical military service member looks at homes when they walk through homes, and then I'll talk through what my perspective of it is as how I would walk through it as a military investor.
Well, thanks, Dan. He's right. There's a completely different paradigm happening when people are looking for houses. One thing I noticed is that a lot of military families obviously are concerned with PCSing down the road. So they think to themselves, is this house going to be a good investment for me and my family? When we leave, are we going to get hurt from owning this property? In most cases, that's not necessarily the case. However, with the longevity that a lot of people have, maybe 4 to 5 years, maybe 7 years at a place, you have to be really mindful of what you're buying and why. So we were just discussing, like, you know, for a person looking to get out of a rental and into their first home, this works. But it might not necessarily meet the criteria for someone who's looking to build a portfolio as a PCS. And that's kind of what I'm hoping that we explore.
He's 100% right. So like you said, a typical military service member would come through and look at it. Hey, this is a nice area, got a nice school district, nice backyard, great for my family and my kids. I would be looking for the same exact thing. However, I'm looking at the long term. I'm not just looking at the short term here and now, and I'm looking at, hey, how is this going to cash flow? So for instance, going over the numbers of this particular house, this house is on the market for $85,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Is about 1,100 square feet. It's a great, nice little cookie cutter home. Great for a first-time home buyer, maybe the E6 or maybe the junior officer that just got in, looking for a nice place to settle down. So I'm going to tell you why I would not buy this house. One, the rental market. That's one huge thing that you look for, is how fast these things are renting out, how long they're renting out for. Is it turnover? Are we talking about, is this a transient duty station where, like Fort Benning, for any of you guys that are in the Army, guys are only staying there for like 6 months to a year? Or is this a longer term facility? Is it a place people stay for 4 years before they actual PCS? So those are the things that I'm looking for. This place is a long-term base. People typically stay here for about 3 to 4 years before they PCS. So that's a good thing. One of the bad things is that the rent only goes for about $750 here. $750, maybe $800 for this style home. So again, the sale price is $85,000, and it only rents for max $800. So that's less than the 1% rule. So for those of you who don't know, the 1% rule or the 2% rule, it's essentially however much you are paying for the home, it should generate that amount per month. So if it's $85,000, it should be renting for $850 a month. 1% of that total, the total sale price or the total purchase price of the home is what it should be renting for per month to meet that criteria. So this does not meet that criteria. We did a simple calculation. We went to Bankrate and actually ran the numbers on it for how much our mortgage and how much our PITI would be, our principal, interest, taxes, and insurance would be for this single family home. And what we came up to was our PITI was $899 a month. So that's typically what a person would pay for an $85,000 home at 4.5% interest on a 30-year amortization schedule. $900 a month in mortgage, but you can only generate $800 a month in rent. So you're looking at a deficit of $100 a month. So that is not an investment. And unfortunately, there's a lot of service members out there that aren't really thinking the long term. They're assuming that either the home will appreciate or rent will appreciate significantly in the 2 or 3 year time span that they're actually there on ground. And that just doesn't happen. So
I got another thing too, Dan.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, you might hear $800, $900 and think, oh wow, that's great. My BAH is $1,600. But you also have to factor in the other associated costs, the closing costs, the other things that come along with ownership of the house. And even if you were to sink all of your BAH into a property to kind of try to pay your principal down, it just for how long you're there, it doesn't work. That's another thing people get caught up in, is my BAH is $1,200, so I'm going to spend $1,200 a month in my mortgage, and it's not a good idea. You've got to come a little bit beneath your BAH if you want to not bust your head against the deal. Like, that's just residential ownership.
That's 100% right. There's a lot of people that there's a lot of service members that they're like, hey, I got $1,200 in BAH and I'm gonna spend that $1,200 in BAH. Basically, I'm living for free. But no, you can live below that BAH, and that goes right into another point, which is all the associated costs that he was talking about. There's other associated costs, like when you move, you're not going to be wanting to deal with tenants. You're not going to be wanting to answer phone calls and things like that. You're going to likely want to hire out a property manager, which is about 10% for a single family home. So 10% of your monthly rent, and we said $800 was about how much you're going to get. So an additional $80 for monthly property management fees you're going to have to tack onto that. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to consider your repair costs. Also the CapEx. This home is pretty good for your capital expenditures. Those are your things that have longer lifespans, like your AC unit and your AC handler and your roof and your water heater, things that typically last a little bit longer. But you typically want to factor in a small percentage for that, depending on how new your appliances or those capital expenditures are. So for this house, for example, they're fairly new. They pretty much were changed out recently, so maybe you can think about 2.5% or something like that. But you have to factor all those things in. Your vacancies, that's another thing. So these are some of the things you want to consider, and these are the reasons why I would not buy this particular home. So again, just a recap on the numbers: $85K is what they're asking. You can only rent this thing for about $800 a month, and then you're still in a deficit. So if you're renting out, you're still shelling out an additional $100 a month. These are some things that I and Brandon strongly recommend recommend thinking about as you go and purchase your home, if you're buying with the intent to turn your home into a rental property after you leave. And I'm sure Brandon can talk to it. I'm sure you sold enough homes to see other service members kind of fall into that same mistake. And these are one of those things why you want to have a great realtor that understands what an investor is looking for, or can look out for, if you're a service member, that can look out for you for your best interest as you transition from that duty station. Brandon knows the numbers. He understands, hey, he understands the 1.5% rule, the 2% rule, and understands cash flow is king, and you want to be able to cash flow after you PCS to turn your old home into an actual asset where you're making money and you're not losing money. So.
Well, I can speak on that from personal experience. When I got to Wright-Patterson, I bought a single-family home for me and my family, and it was one of those situations where the BAH covered it and everything was good to go. Fast forward, we wanted to move. We didn't so much like the school zone, and I mean that property cash flows maybe $130 a month, and I'm self-managing, so as an asset, it's not really doing it for me. It's more of a loaded gun than anything, because when my tenants move out, if I can't sell it, that's a bill I have to foot. And you know, given the market's conditions, I might be okay, but I lucked out. A lot of people, you know, they get to their first or second duty station, they want to buy a house, and they're not thinking in the way that you buy the house, because you're gonna go VA. And if you're gonna go VA, then you need a very particular type of deal to make that happen, if investment is your ultimate goal.
Okay, well, with that said, I think that's about it. I think it's great talking. You know, we got some good footage, and hopefully you guys learned something. If you did learn something, please subscribe, hit the like button, hit the share button. Would really appreciate that. Also, please reach out to Brandon. Can you tell him where you're from one more time? I'll put your information here on the bottom of the screen.
Absolutely. I'm stationed out, well, not stationed, excuse me, I've separated, so I'm not stationed anywhere. I work with Keller Williams Community Partners up in Miamisburg, and
Ohio, for those of you
Ohio,
who don't
yeah.
know.
So if you're stationed at Wright-Patterson and you're looking for someone to see what your options are in the market, reach out to me. I'm sure Dan will put my information somewhere. I'll answer any questions you have. I'll show you what's on the market, and I've got other things in the pockets too. If you're looking at wholesale deals or any interest like that, if you've got a portfolio you're trying to build, talk to me. We'll make it happen. I travel to the base all the time, up to Troy, up the tip, even down in Cincinnati. So I'm ready for you when you're ready for me.
And like I said, again, you guys have heard it in my videos a bunch of times. I talk about those realtors that don't know shit about investing. Brandon's not one of those guys. So again, if you are a service member in this area or coming up to Wright-Patterson, strongly suggest reaching out to Brandon, and he can help you. He can help you find yourself a home, and not just a home, but also a future investment. So, with that, it's Dan Wynn signing out.